Hey guys, so we just had this wonderful worship night at our church with our youth group, and at this worship night we talked about design and what we're made for. Have you ever thought about that for yourself? What are you made for? Have you ever thought about it starting with God? Does it start with yourself? Does it start with finding purpose or meaning? Here's the thing I wanted to share with you guys, and it's this. We were all made to worship Jesus because that's what we're designed to do. We were all designed to have a God, and Jesus is the only thing that's meant to take that place as our God. He's the one we're designed to give our worship, our surrender to, our everything to. But sometimes, when we try to go astray from what God designed, we end up giving our surrender to things, and we end up running to things that we weren't designed for. Colossians says this, that you are made by God and for God. You're made by God to worship. You're made for God to worship. You're meant to worship Him and Him only. And worship, it isn't just music, it isn't just performance or singing. Even though, what we did at the worship night, that is worship. But worship is so much more than that. Because worship is what we do with our everyday life. Worship is what we give our time and our devotion to. It's what we give our priorities to. That is worship. Romans 12:1 says this, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, as holy and pleasing to the Lord. For this is your true and proper worship. And the Greek word for worship in that verse, it's latreia, and it means reasonable service or logical worship. And it's only logical for us to give our worship and our surrender to God only, because we're made in His image and we're designed for that. We were made to give our surrender to Him. And here's a quick story I just want to share with you guys I heard about earlier this week. And it's about this woman. She got this brand new car. She's exhausted from work, so she's on the way home. She's driving home, and she needs to fill up her car. So she pulls into this gas station, gets the gas pump, and then she's just standing there confused because she can't figure out how to fill up her car. So eventually, a bunch of time passes by. She's still standing there with the gas pump, can't figure out how to fill up her car. A bunch of people are just staring at her, wondering, what is this lady doing? They're thinking she's crazy. And eventually this man walks up to her and he's like, ma'am, you can't fill up your car because your car is a Tesla. Can you just put yourself in her shoes for a moment? Like, just imagine yourself standing there with the gas pump wondering, why can't I fill up my car? You can't figure out how to fill up your car, and you just have a bunch of people staring around at you thinking you're crazy. The problem wasn't with effort, but it was with design. Because as you know, Teslas weren't made to run on gas. They weren't designed for that. But they're designed to be plugged in. And in the same way, you were made to be plugged into. But you're meant to be plugged in with God. That's the one you're meant to be plugged into. And here's the thing a lot of people forget, or they just don't notice. We all worship something. We never stop worshiping. We just redirect our worship. We redirect it to something else. As I said earlier, you're made by God and for God to worship. We were all designed to have a God, and Jesus is the only thing that's meant to take that place as our God. But instead, when we try to do things our own way, we try to disobey God, we end up running to things that we weren't designed for. And we end up giving our time and devotion to this. It grows slowly and slowly. We end up raising this thing up on a pedestal, and we eventually raise it above God. We give our time and our devotion to it, give our everything to it, and that thing that we raised above God, that ends up becoming an idol that we worship. And our idolatry, it's different for each of us. Idolatry, it could be raising ourselves up to God's place or putting ourselves over God. It could be school, grades, relationships, social media, your popularity, looks, money, sports. None of those things are bad. Those are all blessings from God. But that is exactly what they are. They're all secondary to God and His design. They're secondary to who He is. And they become dangerous when you start putting them in the place of God, because they become a distraction over Him, and they end up becoming an idol that you worship. This is what happens when we don't surrender. Our life, it feels empty even though it looks full. We're just going through the motions of everything. We burn out trying to be enough, trying to be in control constantly, trying to do everything on our own. We weren't designed for that. Have you ever thought about a time, you were out somewhere and just your phone signal was horrible? It's horrible when that happens. Like when you get your phone, nothing's loading, everything's buffering, all your apps aren't loading, nothing's working. Like I have an iPhone, so all my texts turn green or they just don't send at all. And here's the thing. You still have the phone, but the phone isn't working the way it should. It's still a phone, nothing changed about it, but it's not working the way it's designed. Think about a time, you saw your phone battery at 1%, probably by surprise. You end up, lowering the brightness, closing all these apps on your phone. You end up shutting it down, trying to shut it down for as long as possible so you could quickly look around you to find a charger so you could recharge your phone again. That's how some of us are living spiritually. We're living as if, keep running to these different things, these idols that we weren't designed for. Our lives are buffering because we don't have a connection to the signal, and that signal is God. We don't have a connection to God, so our lives are constantly buffering. We have our life, but it isn't working the way it should. Some of us, we're living as if we're on 1% constantly. As I said, we're constantly running to these idols for fulfillment, but we weren't designed for it, and they were never meant to sustain us. Because He is the only thing that's meant to sustain us. And this is what happens when we surrender. It's not losing our life, but it's finding who we truly are in His design, in God's identity. It's finding who we truly are. We were always designed for this. We were designed to give our worship and to surrender to Jesus. That's what we were made to do. And this is what surrender is. Surrender, it isn't, as I said, it isn't losing your life, but it's confessing to Jesus that I trust you more than I trust myself. That you are God and I am not. That's what surrender is. Now ask yourself this question. What are you plugged into right now? What are you constantly running to? What is hardest for you to surrender? Because what's hardest for you to surrender is an idol. We all have something to give up. Stop trying to put gas into a Tesla and plug into the one that you were made for.